Candle Part 3, The Haunting of Betsy Bell. In the small wooden house in the wilderness of Tennessee, the winter nights of 1818 grew harsher, not only from the cold, but from the strange torment the Bell family had to endure. From the very first day, the mysterious knockings echoed against the wooden walls. Then the strange footsteps ran along the dark hallways. The family had not known a single peaceful night. Yet if John Bell, the pillar of the household, was the first victim, the one to bear the greatest horror was Betsy, the youngest daughter, only 12 years old, with clear blue eyes and soft golden hair like strands of silk. By day, Betsy still tried to appear normal. She helped her mother with farm work and household chores alongside her brothers and sisters, sometimes even exchanging shy smiles with Joshua Gardner, the schoolmate she secretly admired. But as soon as darkness fell, when the family gathered by the fire and the orange glow flickered on their worried faces, Betsy's throat tightened. She knew that tonight, as on so many others, the unseen presence would not leave her alone. At first, it only whispered, a woman's voice echoing right at her ear. Betsy, drawn out, trembling like the wind slipping through the cracks of the door. Betsy spun around, but behind her was only empty, icy space. Then, when the household was fast asleep, it grew bolder. An invisible hand seized her long hair, yanking it so hard her head struck the bed frame. She screamed, and instantly her brothers rushed in. But when the door burst open, all they saw was the girl sitting on the bed, pale-faced, clutching her head, eyes brimming with panic and tears. Bruises soon appeared. On Betsy's thin arms, red marks etched deep like fingers gripping her tightly. Once, right before her parents' eyes, Betsy suddenly collapsed backward, her throat choking as though an invisible hand were strangling her. John Bell rushed forward, clutching his daughter, struggling to pull her from the unseen grip. But no matter how he shouted, pleaded, or fought in desperation, nothing changed, except the child's sobs choking in terror. Only when Betsy was nearly unconscious did the pressure release, leaving dreadful purple marks around her neck. That terror could no longer be hidden. All of Tennessee soon buzzed with talk of a spirit haunting the Bell family. People came at first out of curiosity, but left in horror when they witnessed Betsy beaten and tormented by an unseen force. Some believed it was the vengeance of Kate Batts, the strange woman living nearby, who had long resented the Bells. Others thought it was a curse or a punishment from God. But whatever the cause, all agreed. Betsy was the target, the victim through whom the spirit found its cruel delight. In the nights that followed, the little house became the arena of a merciless game. Betsy was not only slapped, pinched, and dragged from her bed, but also tormented by mocking whispers at her ear. You will never escape. I will take your soul. Each word was like a blade carving into the fragile mind of the young girl, wearing her down day by day. The once bright sparkle of childhood in her eyes dulled into heaviness. Her skin grew pale. Her body trembled each time darkness came. Once at supper, as the family bowed their heads in prayer, Betsy suddenly cried out in agony. Her hair lifted as if by unseen hands. Her entire body dragged from the chair and hurled to the floor before them all. The spoons and forks rattled violently as if struck. Mary Bell, her mother, collapsed to her knees, clutching her daughter with trembling arms, tears streaming down her face. Lord, please save this child. But the only reply was mocking laughter echoing from the kitchen, cold, cruel, savoring the family's anguish. The torment followed Betsy even into her dreams. Each night she saw the same image, a woman in a tattered black dress, hair disheveled, her face hidden in mist, standing right beside her bed. The woman leaned down, eyes glowing red, whispering curses in words she could not understand. When Betsy awoke drenched in cold sweat, her pillow bore muddy stains, as though someone had truly sat there. The church community could not remain silent. Reverend James Johnston, a close friend of the Bells, came to stay overnight. He himself witnessed Betsy being struck in her sleep, and heard the cries and pleas of an unseen torment echo throughout the room. The old minister trembled as he admitted, "There truly is a wicked spirit here, and it has chosen Betsy as the vessel of its terror." But perhaps the cruelest torment was how the ghost crept into Betsy's daily life. At school, it still followed her. While she wrote at the blackboard, she heard the voice at her ear. "Do not smile at Joshua again. If you do, I will make him die in pain." That night, Betsy wept bitterly, telling Joshua she could not see him anymore. The boy was bewildered, heartbroken, unable to understand why his dear friend pushed him away. But Betsy knew, if she defied the spirit, it would take its wrath out on him, and she could not bear that thought. Winter dragged on in unbearable tension. The Bell house, once a shelter, now felt like hell on earth. Each evening, the family sat by the fire in silence, afraid to speak loudly, as though fearing to stir the wrath of the unseen force. Betsy sat curled in a corner, her small hands clutching the Bible, murmuring prayers. But no prayer seemed strong enough to banish the darkness around her. And as the days wore on, Betsy began to lose her will. Each morning in the mirror, she saw a gaunt face, shadowed eyes, a smile that had long since vanished. Sometimes she asked herself, "Why me? Why will it not let me go?" The question lingered, unanswered. Only the darkness remained, and the cold voice that echoed every night. It seemed the evil grew more delighted as her despair deepened. And just as Betsy thought she could endure no longer, the door of the Bell home opened to a greater storm, the attention of all America, rumors spreading far and wide, and events that would write the family into history. But that is the story of later chapters. For now, in those dark years, Betsy Bell was only a 12-year-old girl, bound by the unseen hands of a force no one could understand. The bruises on her neck, the sobs in the night, and the terrified innocence in her eyes became living proof of the haunting called the Bell Witch. Open Book Part 4, The Horror of John Bell. John Bell had long been a symbol of the Red River region, Tennessee. He was the kind of man everyone respected, a hard-working farmer, a faithful husband, a devoted father. The fertile fields, the abundant livestock, and the sturdy wooden house, standing proudly in the middle of the land, were the fruits of a lifetime of tireless labor. The people around often spoke of John's success and virtue, holding him up as a shining example for the community. But no one could have imagined that he would become both witness and victim of one of the most terrifying tales in American history. Everything began silently, as gentle as a strange breeze. At first, John only felt that sometimes he lost focus when reading the Bible, the words before his eyes seeming to dance and twist out of shape. Occasionally, a fleeting headache made him frown, but he brushed it off, telling himself it was only age or overwork. Mary, his wife, often urged him to rest, but John only smiled. "I still have enough strength to take care of this family, Mary. Don't worry." Yet those headaches did not lessen. Instead, they grew more brutal. They struck suddenly, violently, forcing John to halt his work, clutching his head as he gasped for breath. Many nights, he sat motionless for hours by the oil lamp, his eyes blank, as if staring through the room into some invisible, shadowy realm. When Mary shook his shoulder, he whispered, "There's a voice calling my name, right by my ear, but no one is there." At first, the family thought it was only hallucination, but then strange phenomena began to appear, undeniable in their clarity. Whenever John picked up the Bible to read, a strange voice rang out from the void. At first it was only a murmur, but soon it grew sharper, clearer, a cold, mocking female voice. "Why do you read the Bible, John Bell? You cannot escape me." That voice echoed throughout the room, leaving the family's limbs trembling with fear. Betsy, the youngest daughter, burst into terrified sobs, while Mary fell to her knees in prayer. But John, though trying to stay composed, shook so badly that his hardened, calloused hands could no longer hold the book steady. Then, one freezing winter morning, when snow covered the paths, John walked out to the stable as usual. He had not even opened the door when an unseen force slammed him backward, his head striking the frozen ground. The horses inside neighed wildly, pounding their hooves as if sensing something dreadful. His sons rushed to him, only to see their father trembling violently, eyes rolled back, lips stammering. It had stood right in front of me, right there. From that day on, John's health declined without end. He began to struggle to walk, his voice slurred as if someone were strangling his throat. At night, the family often heard heavy breathing and strangled cries coming from his room. When they rushed in, They were horrified to find bruises on his neck, the clear marks of human hands. The air in the room was thick, freezing, until the oil lamp guttered out, and then a shrill laughter rang. Old John Bell, the time has come. No matter how many people prayed, no matter how many ministers came to bless the house, nothing worked. The ghost seemed not only to torment John's body, but to gnaw away at the spirit of the whole family. Sometimes, while the family gathered at the table, John suddenly froze, his hands shaking until he spilled hot soup everywhere. Then the voice rang out again, so clearly no one could doubt it. "Don't bother anymore, John Bell. Your time is running out." Rumors spread across Red River. People whispered that the Bell family was facing a dark force, that John Bell had been marked. Some pitied them. Some came out of curiosity to witness, but all returned pale-faced after hearing the ghostly whispers with their own ears or seeing objects move and break before their eyes. John gradually became a shadow of himself. The once strong, resolute man had wasted into a frail, trembling figure. He ate little, spoke little, his weary eyes still holding a faint spark of determination. He knew death was near, and it would not be an ordinary death. Perhaps he had been chosen to bear the hatred of that invisible entity. On the night before tragedy struck, the Bell home shook violently. Windows banged, wooden walls creaked, chairs and tables slid on their own. Everyone panicked and prayed, but the hideous laughter thundered through the house, drowning everything out. Tomorrow he will be no more. The next morning, when Mary and the children entered the room, they found John lying still, his breath faint. Beside the bed was a strange bottle of thick black liquid, its origin unknown. When his son raised it to his nose, the acrid stench made him gag. At that very moment, the familiar voice rang out, full of triumph. "That is my poison. I gave it to him. At last, John Bell belongs to me." There was nothing anyone could do. Only hours later, John Bell breathed his last. Silence filled the house, broken only by Mary and the children's sobs. But just as his spirit departed, the room erupted in a mad, triumphant laughter that rang on and on. John Bell's funeral drew crowds of people. They came not only to mourn, but out of curiosity, for the story of the murderous ghost had spread far and wide. As the coffin was lowered into the ground, a ghostly singing and hideous laughter were heard, sending many fleeing in terror. Even the bravest who remained were left trembling, their faces drained of all color. The death of John Bell became a dark milestone in Tennessee's history. People believed he was the only man in America ever killed by a ghost. And the Bell Witch, with her laughter, her curses, continued to haunt the family, as if his death had only been the beginning of a long chain of tragedy. Later, when people recalled the tale, they swore that on the night before John Bell died, they saw a strange green light flickering on his rooftop and heard an unnatural howling wind. They said it was the ghost declaring its victory. But one thing neither the Bell family nor anyone else could deny. The horror of John Bell was not only the torment of his body, but the collapse of a man once steadfast, a symbol of faith and hope. And when he fell, everyone understood that the Bell Witch sought not just to destroy one man, but to plant fear deep into the heart of an entire community.